Hello to all astrology enthusiasts. In this video, I want to discuss the transit of the planet Venus in the zodiac sign Aries. And let me remind you that Venus was retrograde for 40 days and moved back from Aries into Pisces. We talked about this in additional videos on the channel. You can rewatch them. So now let's take a look at Venus's transit in Aries after its retrograde period. Also, I want to mention that Venus returned to Aries on April 30th at 2016 in the evening, and its transit through this sign will last until June the 6th, 2025, inclusive. Before we discuss the characteristics of Venus in Aries, especially after its retrograde period, let's first talk about what the planet Venus actually represents in astrology, how its energies manifest in our lives, and which areas of life it is generally responsible for. Well, most importantly, we should remember that Venus in astrology is the planet of our feelings, our emotions, love, beauty, and harmony, especially in personal relationships. Venus is responsible for our pleasure and enjoyment. In addition, it also influences the financial sphere. And in general, it is connected to how we perceive the world through an aesthetic, a lens, how we express our feelings in relationships, how we build and create relationships, and overall, what brings us satisfaction and joy in life. Well, the main themes of Venus are, in general, our ability to appreciate beauty, love, relationships, and pleasures. It is Venus that is responsible for our choice of partner, the one who fits our type of relationship. It is also responsible for our perception of art and beauty. Venus governs comfort, convenience, happiness, and affects all areas where we tend to seek balance and harmony. It also influences the creative industries such as art, fashion, and design, and touches on the topics of music and food. And it expresses its energies in matters of finance, resources, and personal money. And accordingly, in our horoscope, Venus also rules two signs, Taurus and Libra. In Taurus, Venus expresses itself as a stable, sensual planet that seeks material security and pleasures, especially when it comes to food, beauty, and physical comfort. But in Libra, the focus shifts to relationships. Here, Venus manifests as a more intellectual, more social planet that strives for harmony in relationships. She seeks balance in interactions and is responsible for creating partnerships, cooperation, and diplomatic negotiations. All of this is precisely what Venus highlights for us in the horoscope. If we delve into the realm of relationships, it is Venus in the chart that shows us how we attract a partner into our lives, how we build relationships, how we give and receive love, how we maintain relationships in our lives in general, and how we express attachment and care. Also, Venus in the chart indicates what kind of love we are looking for, what our preferences are in relationships. And accordingly, if Venus is in harmonious aspects, it brings a sense of harmony and happiness. If it is in challenging aspects, then accordingly, there are difficulties, insecurity, possibly problems with expressing one's feelings, and in general, challenges in building healthy personal relationships. If we touch on the financial aspect, Venus here is specifically responsible for how we manage our resources, how we earn money, how we use our material assets, what values are important to us financially, what we seek in terms of material goods in our lives, and how we tend to spend money in general, especially on luxury items, art, travel, and pleasures. And one more thing, Venus in retrograde is a period when we, in fact, should reevaluate and reconsider our values, our relationships, and our finances. We actually had such a period from March to mid-April. It was a time of introspection, a period of self-observation, so to speak, when we were reassessing our attachments. We might have worked on correcting mistakes in our relationships and reconsidered our finances. And Venus in retrograde always helps us clear our space in order to create more sincere and deeper personal connections. It also gives us the opportunity to realize what we truly need for happiness in life. Taking into account Venus's retrograde period this year, we had the opportunity to create an entirely new concept for building relationships and for some, for making money. And now, after the retrograde, we have the chance to start putting this concept into practice in our lives. And what I want to draw your attention to is that Venus in Aries, of course, behaves completely differently than in other zodiac signs. And these energies are precisely what give us the opportunity to set this concept into motion. Overall, the distinctive feature of Venus in Aries is that it brings very dynamic, passionate energies into our lives. It specifically activates themes of love, attractiveness, our initiative, and self-expression. That is, Venus, the planet of love and beauty, when it enters a fire sign, begins to act with much greater decisiveness, impulsiveness, and activity. And of course, this transit creates an atmosphere in our lives where, first of all, our desire to take action in relationships and personal interests becomes especially intense. And during this transit, we are less inclined to overthink things. Accordingly, the transit of Venus in Aries activates passion and impulsiveness in love. In other words, Venus as if loses its peacefulness and diplomacy, becoming more proactive and straightforward. And this is a time when the desire for romance and love becomes as open and active as possible. So here, there can be bursts of passion and sudden, very intense attractions. During this transit, you tend to enter into relationships very quickly or openly express our affections and attractions. Flirting during this transit is especially vivid. We want to show off our attractiveness, and this can even become excessive. Such a transit can also provide an opportunity to start new romantic relationships, especially if you have been holding yourself back for a long time, not expressing your feelings. And now Venus can activate these states. Also, Venus in Aries activates a state where we seek independence in our personal relationships. In general, Aries is a sign that values independence and freedom. And the transit of Venus in this sign, of course, forces us to reconsider how we feel in relationships. And we also want more space for self-expression in our personal lives and partnerships during this transit. That is, we seem to be less inclined toward dependent relationships. We want to find a partner who allows us to be ourselves, who provides freedom specifically for personal activity and self-expression. And in addition to this, despite this state of independence, because at the same time, Venus in Aries directs us or increases our desire for very rapid closeness. So relationships need to be very active, very dynamic. At the same time, both sides in the relationship should strive to maintain this individuality so that everything remains easy, open, free, and of course, very passionate and intense, because after all, these are fiery energies. Undoubtedly, Venus in Aries can also bring us short-term relationships, personal romantic relationships that are very intense, very, well, let's say it's all about adventure. Here, there's passion, fire, and excitement. All of this is at the forefront, specifically in casual personal relationships. A quick fling, short, intense romances. All of this can be very exciting, but not always long-lasting. And during this transit, we can really enjoy the novelty and the intensity. Additionally, there's a particular fascination with physical attractiveness, with appearance. Here we're also inclined to express ourselves extravagantly and originally through our looks. That is, we have an increased desire to stand out, to attract attention specifically with our style. And this is a great time to promote certain fashion trends, to highlight unconventional styles. And besides all that, as I mentioned, Venus in Aries is very straightforward. It kind of openly declares, it gives us the opportunity to openly express our feelings in relationships. And if conflicts arise, then here too, the sorting out of issues will be as frank, open, and uninhibited as possible. Undoubtedly, this transit of Venus in Aries is perfect for launching new projects, especially in art and creativity. Everything related to self-expression and public presence. So, accordingly, let's now look at the aspects that Venus will make while transiting through Aries and how they will manifest in our lives. Venus began its transit with a conjunction to Neptune in Aries. And here, situations could arise where our desires and feelings were colored by maximum idealism and a strong attraction to beauty. At the same time, we might have acted very impulsively, not waiting for certain aspects of our reality to become clear. Overall, this aspect is one of romantic illusions, sudden infatuations, an aspect of inspiration, and at the same time, on the downside, it definitely brings vulnerability. Here, situations could arise where love appears at first sight, or we idealize our partner. But these are also risks for disappointment. In other words, the rose-colored glasses will inevitably be shattered. And in the financial sphere, this aspect could make us prone to spending and impulsive purchases. In the moment, it seems like a dream come true, but we are unable to realistically assess the value of the thing we want to buy. And in creativity, for example, this aspect can bring a flash of genius, a feeling that we are simply connected to something higher. And especially if we have many personal planets in fire and water signs, because after all, Venus is coming from Pisces and returning to Aries. And here, this aspect could create in us a feeling or desire to search, to find meaning in love, in art, either through beauty or through compassion and empathy. And on the downside, of course, this brings unconditional self-deception, emotional swings, and an unconscious escape into illusion, specifically through love and passion. Or if we're talking about spending, it could mean impulsive purchases. And the exact aspect occurred on May 2nd, 2025. Here we also had a sextile between Venus and Pluto in Aquarius milieu, which created an energy of attractiveness, charisma, and confidence. And, of course, all of this could have brought certain changes in our personal relationships, values, or in the financial sphere. In other words, this aspect gives us the opportunity to subtly yet powerfully influence other people precisely through our initiative, through displays of passion, through unconventional behavior or bold decisions in relationships or actions. And the aspect itself can activate hidden desires. It's as if it awakens a sense of magnetism within us. After all, Pluto is involved here. It directs us toward connecting with very powerful individuals, or gives us the opportunity to form unconventional partnerships. In general, a sextile is a very subtle energy that you need to sense and, so to speak, seize in order to bring it into reality. It sort of provides resources, and if we catch this energy, then of course we can use it to our advantage. We can use this energy to launch some original projects or take on some risky ventures. And especially if all of this is connected to beauty or design, then in the future it can definitely work to our advantage. The main thing here is to sense this energy and use it consciously. This boldness of Venus in Aries and the strategic approach of Pluto in Aquarius, in other words, this is a very subtle energy. On May 5th, we have a long-term trine between Venus in Aries and Mars in Leo. And this is a very harmonious aspect, especially for personal relationships, which is charged with passion, inspiration, and a strong desire to act for the sake of love, feelings, creativity, and our self-expression. The aspect itself creates an atmosphere of vivid attraction, flirting, and both emotional and physical initiative. This is especially evident in personal relationships. Under this aspect, we become bold in expressing our feelings. We feel confident, ready to take a leadership position in matters related to our personal life or finances. And this is a period when our relationships develop very rapidly and projects can receive support, including financial backing. And it's as if we feel inside that I can do it. We have increased decisiveness and even a certain sense of excitement. This trine is also very favorable for artistic performances, creating unconventional content, presentations, romantic dates, and launching creative projects. On the positive side, of course, this is fire and inspiration. On the negative side, there is a high risk of ignoring other people's feelings while pursuing some kind of passion. Here, it's especially important to maintain a balance between our ego and our feelings, our heart. And this aspect will continue to intensify. Its peak will fall on May 22, 2025. On May 13th, we will have a square aspect with the retrograde asteroid Pholus in Capricorn. And this aspect can trigger unexpected twists or provide small triggers that will lead to major consequences in areas such as personal relationships, finances, or certain projects related specifically to beauty or self-expression. Let me remind you that you need to look at the actions and synchronicity of aspects in relation to your own natal chart. And you should also check the big positions of the planets, asteroids, or fixed stars in your Panier chart, as well as their current transits, and understand that if an aspect interacts with your chart, then naturally it will manifest in your life. So then, what is important to consider here? Venus in Aries acts impulsively and passionately, while retrograde Pholus in Capricorn points to deeply rooted social, career, or family patterns that can suddenly just explode under the influence of emotions or a desire for freedom and independence. Naturally, in real life, this can manifest as an unexpected conflict because of these very limitations, certain obligations, or social norms. and especially in situations where we suddenly want to defend our feelings, a particular choice, or our style, image, or when it concerns financial matters. The square aspect with this asteroid kind of serves as a warning that even if we take some minor actions, a phrase, a decision, an impulsive purchase, it will all have a champagne cork effect, so to speak, an unexpected but very far-reaching development of some situation. And of course, it would be good here to observe your own internal attitudes or some external influences that somehow affect us, but we realize that they no longer work. And the only thing that's important to avoid here is acting impulsively. That is, this theme of transformation through a crisis point of choice may come into play, may actually work. The only thing you need is, well, to still manage your emotions in this aspect. On May 27th, we will have a sextile with the asteroid Pallas in Aquarius. And this will be a supportive energy that will open up and give us the opportunity specifically to establish intellectual or creative harmony and balance in personal relationships, financial matters, or in our social life. Pallas in Aquarius is responsible for strategic thinking, for our originality, for the ability to constructively use something new in our lives, while also combining our personal, so to speak, attractiveness and charm according to Venus, with the ability, this very ability, to see prospects, to see unconventional opportunities, and at the same time to use these energies to achieve our goals. So how might this manifest in life? In relationships, this is a time for communicating with partners, specifically on the basis of accepting the individuality of both sides or embracing some original viewpoints. If we touch on the financial sphere, here it's the opportunity to make some unconventional decisions that will bring long-term financial benefits. And at the same time, if we also use technology or participate in some group projects or make some unconventional financial investments, that is, a sextile kind of gives a very harmonious energy, but you need to catch it. You need to use it to your advantage. Here, there is an opportunity to take into account the interests of both sides. A very favorable aspect for joining forces, for some collective group undertakings or projects, especially where there is an intellectual match, a non-standard approach, and an openness to novelty. All of this is supported by this interesting aspect with Pallas.
2019, May 28th.
Venus enters Aries. On May 28th, Venus in Aries will conjunct Chiron, and this will activate the theme of healing through personal relationships, through issues of self-esteem, and the value found in interactions, unions, and partnerships. And here there will be an opportunity to restore harmony in relationships. Chiron in Aries often brings us very painful yet important lessons that are directly related to our personal identity, self-expression, or personal vulnerability. Here, as Venus conjoins with Chiron, it gives us the opportunity to express our feelings, to show our emotions, but this may happen in a painful way, and we will realize that we need to work through these feelings and emotions in order to heal them. In relationships, this aspect can bring up old resentments, certain fears, dissatisfaction, or suppressed emotions that prevent us from establishing balance in our relationships. This aspect gives us the opportunity through these states and challenges to achieve greater sincerity, more emotional freedom in relationships, and deeper understanding. And here, with this aspect, we start to think more about how to learn to love ourselves more, despite having certain flaws, fears, or beliefs. it gives us the opportunity to look at our responsibility and our role in relationships from a completely different perspective. That is, this is a time when some deep wounds or traumas related to relationships, love, or personal boundaries may come to the surface. But they come to the surface so that we can work through them, so that we can heal them. Chiron gives us exactly this kind of opportunity, and it gives us a chance to eliminate these internal blockages, to get rid of these emotions, and to actually become closer to our partner in personal relationships or in business partnerships that specifically concern our finances. In other words, all areas of life that Venus is responsible for. On May 30th, we have a sextile with Jupiter in Gemini, and this is a very favorable aspect that creates a pleasant atmosphere in our lives for expanding our horizons in the areas of communication, travel, social interactions, new acquaintances, or any educational projects where we can also broaden our worldview. Jupiter in Gemini actively stimulates our intellectual curiosity. It gives us a great variety of contacts and information. Venus in Aries is the planet of small happiness and great happiness. Here, Venus in Aries gives us more energy in all of this and brings us completely new experiences. The sextile between these planets opens up opportunities for very fascinating encounters, for communication with people who, in fact, broaden our horizons and, as it were, give us or open up new paths for personal fulfillment above all. And here it is very good to explore something new. This is a great time to enter into negotiations, sign contracts, start some educational projects, and all of this will attract attention and inspire those around you. In relationships, there may be a moment when interest in a partner intensifies precisely through the exchange of some information or by receiving certain knowledge from the partner. Alternatively, there may be very enjoyable trips accompanied by lively conversations. This is a good time to make useful connections. In terms of finances, this aspect can bring new sources of income through media projects, the internet, various types of communication, and educational projects. What is the main thing here? The main thing is to catch this energy and use it to your advantage. To be open, dynamic, strive for new knowledge, and try to extract as many opportunities as possible that this aspect offers. The exact aspect will occur on June 5th. Here, on June 5th, we have a square aspect with retrograde Pluto in Aquarius. Undoubtedly, this aspect will primarily affect personal relationships. It will create tense, yet very significant situations that will lead to personal transformations, especially in the areas of both personal relationships and finances. Retrograde Pluto in Aquarius, let me remind you, will remain retrograde until October and is directly connected to the deep processes of our personal transformation. We are reevaluating our social roles, reconsidering how we interact within groups, and uncovering certain manipulations or attempts to control us. And Venus in Aries here is striving for very swift action. She wants independence, openness in personal relationships or in matters of money. And of course, when in a square with Pluto, this can lead to conflict. So this is a time when powerful emotional confrontations occur, which touch on issues of trust. For example, in personal relationships or manipulation, as I mentioned. That is, in the realm of love, the square exposes these resentments or causes intense jealousy or brings up some painful moments from the past that need to be worked through. And Pluto allows us, over time, to transform all of this to our advantage. The only thing here is it's important to be prepared for unexpected changes in relationships or financial matters that require a complete overhaul and create crisis situations for us so that we can transform these things to our advantage. In other words, they become rather pivotal moments. We get rid of old behavioral patterns, especially everything related to manipulation and control. The main thing here is to consciously use this energy to cleanse and free yourself. And it's possible that after these crisis situations, you might be able to strengthen these relationships, end them if they're toxic, or start completely new ones, already feeling renewed. And on June 6th, Venus moves into its own domain, the sign of Taurus. We'll talk about that in separate videos on the channel. I wish you success. In the next video, we'll break down Venus's transit in Aries for each of the 12 zodiac signs. Subscribe, like, and share this video. See you soon.